Now, in your career, you had many fronts you utilized. Can you talk about how you found these fronts?
Well, the front had to have several characteristics. It had to be somebody who was logically would be a writer or trying to be a writer, who could go into a meeting and handle him or herself. And that was not easy. And so you had, or I had, different fronts in those years because there were different reasons why they were willing to be your front. Some wanted it because they wanted the credits. They wanted to be writers themselves. Mm-hmm. Some wanted it for the money. Some did it, wouldn't take any money, did it because they thought what was happening was bad. There was often a question of ego involved. Theirs, not mine. I was very happy, to have somebody doing that for me. It was the way I survived. But over the time, it was, I never had anybody like the character Woody plays. But there were different people, and there was one man, very nice man, who wouldn't take any money at all. He had some minor job on I think a city newspaper. And he came one day and said, I can't do it anymore. And I said, why not? He said, well, he had gotten his aged parents mad at him because they wanted some money from him because he was doing so well. And he couldn't tell them the truth of what he was doing. And friends would attack him and say, why are you living like this church mouse when you're making all this money? So you ran into difficulties doing it, but I was lucky. I was very lucky. If the directors, I think Andrea says in the film, the directors and the actors, it was much tougher for them. They had to show their face. We didn't. And if you were able to get hold of a front and you were good enough to work, you got some work.
And writers would often share fronts, correct?
Well, sometimes it depends. What the writers did, what we did, not just the writers, that we helped each other. It may sound very strange to say, but there are aspects of that period that I miss. I miss the friendships. I miss the generosity. I miss the camaraderie. I mean, if if you had two jobs, you had a job and you heard of another one, you would pass it on to another blacklisted writer. And there was a kind of unselfishness that we had, the blacklisted people, that didn't exist. We were in a dog-eat-dog business, and the kind of, I guess, communality that came was very precious.
New York City was the center of live TV production. You were all gathered here. Did you have much connection with what was going on with the Hollywood Blacklist?
No, I had, no, I really didn't. And I think I went out to Hollywood once or twice on a job, but basically was out there for a couple of days and then back again. I didn't know what was going on there. I was there when the Hollywood 10 were indicted, just at the beginning of it, but I knew a couple of them, but I didn't really have anything to do with them.
Mm-hmm. So Hollywood and television were totally separate industries in the way they executed the blacklist.
Well, you know, I don't know how different it was. I mean, the networks and the studios did the same thing. They had a list, and if you were on the list, you didn't work. I mean, in that sense, it was similar.
Though the Hollywood blacklisting kind of ended around 1958, and television went on for a few more years. Any thoughts on why that happened?
Well, it ended, well, I think one reason, they ran out of communists. You know, after a while, it was slim pickings, you know, that they didn't. But also, I think it always had something to do with the Cold War, you know, and my memory is hazy about what was happening around 59, 60, but the mood in the country changed in some way. The climate changed. McCarthy was shamed, and that was very important. And very few people really wanted the blacklist. I mean, the producers didn't want it. The studios didn't want it. They wanted to be free to hire anybody they wanted. They weren't going to go up against the government. They weren't. They would go ahead with what they were told to do. But you know, they didn't want it. And ultimately, in Hollywood, Kirk Douglas and Otto Preminger,
Hired
you know,
Dalton Trumbo.
hired a blacklisted writer, and took longer in television. I mean, I was free to work in movies in 1958, but I still couldn't work in television for another 2 or 3 years.